Which page, Prabhu? I can't catch this text 50.
I don't have the hard copy with me.
Oh,
Someone has the hard copy there?
It's book 3, I mean chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, text 50.
Thank you.
So Prahlad Maharaj, he's known for exemplifying smaranam. So sometimes that's described as a impassive meditation. Impassive in the sense that there's no service. But Hanuman, as you know, was very, very much engaged in service to Lord Ram. So this is one of the reasons I think Prahlad will actually bring up why actually Narada Muni should go to Kim Purusha, where Hanuman resides, and he should be glorified as being a recipient of the Lord's mercy. So let's hear about that. Let's continue hearing about that. The glories of Hanuman, and they're also Ram as well. So let's have some hands up to read. Got some hands up already. Okay, Vrajkishore Mother, your hand shot up first, followed by Mother Kunamai. And let's see what exciting recitation we're going to hear today. Yes, you go ahead. Vrajkishore, go ahead, please.
In Vaikuntha, nothing exists but devotional service rendered through the Sankirtan and in many other forms. It goes.
I think we're on the wrong verse, Mother.
Oh.
Yeah, I think in Vaikuntha, that's going back. You need to come.
But the hard copy is Muli Prabhu, is the page is 322, text 50. That's what if Vajkishori Mataji's got that.
322, sorry.
No, that's the page.
Yeah, I've got.
Okay. It's Yasmin Kapi Patidarsyati. Okay. My dear spiritual master.
No.
The one he keeps himself.
Oh, okay. He keeps himself alive by constantly hearing the glories of Lord Ram. Staying by the side of the Lord's deity, he is present even today in the same splendor as always. Commentary. The pain of separation from Lord Ramchandra would be unbearable for Hanuman, but he has survived by staying always absorbed in the ecstasy of Shravanam Kirtanam. Expert singers among the Kim Purusha, like Arti Sena, support Hanuman by providing sweet recitations of Lord Ramchandra's glories for him to hear. Hanuman stays in Kim Purush Lok, near the permanently installed deity of Lord Ram. He regularly worships that deity in various ways, offering the same personal service he used to perform when together with his Lord. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:19, 1 and 2. My dear king, in Kim Purush Varsha, the great devotee Hanuman is always engaged with the inhabitants of that land in devotional service to Lord Ramchandra, the elder brother of Lakshmana and dear husband of Sita Devi. A host of Gandharvas is always engaged in chanting the glories of Lord Ramchandra. That chanting is always extremely auspicious. Hanumanji and Arti Sena, the chief person in Kim Purush Varsha, constantly hear those glories with complete attention. Hanuman chants various mantras.
Yeah, so I find this interesting because I remember this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's different leaders from different planetary systems, and they're offering prayers to the Lord. And now it's apparent that the prayers or the worship that Hanuman is offering is to a deity of Lord Ram. But I wasn't aware of that before. It's not specifically stated. At least I can't remember it is. So interesting. Because he's not. It's the deity form of Lord Ramachandra. So something to keep in mind that's who Hanuman is worshipping in Kim Purusha Vasha. So he's engaged in deity worship, and they're chanting different mantras in the glorification of the Lord. So whether Hanuman's dressing the deity of Lord Ram or making garlands, we don't know. But he's offering all types of services. So he must be engaged in a variety of service, just like we might be engaged in service to Radha Landaneshwara. So Hanuman is doing different services for the Lord. It'd be interesting to have an account of those services that Hanuman renders to the Ram deity. I'm sure it must be ecstatic service he's doing. You know, so something to keep in mind. All right.
Thank
You
you.
can continue over. Yeah.
Okay. My dear spiritual master, Hanuman's greatness is well known from the scriptural statements like the chief of the monkeys became perfect by acting as the Lord's servant. His servitude is proof of the Lord's mercy. Commentary. Prahlad quotes the phrase Kapipati Dasye from the famous verse. Parikshit became perfect simply by hearing, the son of Vyasa by chanting, Prahlad by remembering, and Lakshmi by serving the Lord's feet. Prithu became perfect by deity worship, Akrura by offering prayers, and the chief of the monkeys by acting as a servant. Arjun attained perfection by friendship, and Bali by surrendering everything he owned. How then can there be one description for what it means to be a devotee of the Lord? In Srila Sanatan Goswami's opinion, Sridhar Swami's interpretation of the word dasyam is offering the Lord the fruits of one's work, only partially describes Hanuman's relationship with Lord Ram. Srila Sanatan Goswami says that dasyam rather should be understood to indicate the perpetual relationship of loving service and exalted variety of transcendental rasa. Dasya is complete service. It involves all the senses, even on the physical level. Just as all the senses of the physical body are purified by a bath, they are all naturally engaged by devotees' absorption in Dasya Ras. Therefore, a relationship of servitude like Hanuman's can be said to be superior to mere remembrance of the Lord. Prahlad considers his own service of Smaranan inferior because it is only the inner activity of mind.
Okay, so that's what we mentioned in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So devotional service, and for us, this is our emphasis, although we are engaged in Smaranam as well. But
As
we're
a dasyam,
actively
it says that all the senses are purified by dasyam. So that
yeah, that's quite a high level of dasyam.
yes.
Yeah. Just so this is the level of Hanuman service, dasyam.
Okay. Okay, text
Okay.
52. Although Hanuman obtained from the son of Dasarath the boon of liberation without striving for it, he never wanted to accept liberation without the opportunity to serve. To that Hanuman I offer my obeisances. Commentary. This is another verse Prahlad quotes from scripture, from Sri Narayana Vyuhastava. A proof of Hanuman's greatness, liberation became available to Hanuman without his even trying for it. But still he did not want to accept it. He wanted only service to Lord Ram and nothing else. He thought, even if the cycle of birth and death is broken for me, I must continue serving my Lord. Text 53. You certainly know glories of his that I haven't mentioned. Why not go to Kim Purush Varsha? See him yourself and be enlivened. Commentary. Prahlad did not have to give Narad a long theoretical account of Hanuman's exclusive devotion to Sri Raghunath's lotus feet, because Narad already knew of Hanuman's devotion very well. For complete appreciation of Hanuman, Narad must now only meet him in person. Text 54. Sri Parikshit said, "Oh dear mother," the sage Narad then jumped up from his seat and flew through the sky to Kim Purush Varsha, all the while repeating, How wonderful, how wonderful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Text
So just remembering that this is a conversation. Remember at the very beginning, this is a conversation between Parikshit and his mother's name is. Someone can remember his mother's name?
Uttara.
Uttara. That's correct. Yeah. So can anyone remember the context of when this conversation took place?
After the Srimad Bhagavatam was completed and Sukadeva Goswami left, and Parikshit was on his way to sit down wherever, and the mother came quickly. And she asked, what did you say? So he gives this in a very brief, the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's before the Taksha snake comes. So there seems like an amount of time there, which was taken up in, and it's interesting, Parikshit Maharaj's conclusion after hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. In other words, he doesn't detail the accounts given in Srimad Bhagavatam, but what he does, he gives the essence of Bhagavatam, which is bhakti, which is devotional service. So he's given this account clarifying about the position of devotion to the Lord and who is the most devoted. But it's interesting. So anyway, yeah, so well remembered. So Parikshit Maharaj is speaking to Uttara. So we're just reminded of that. Okay.
It's quite interesting that Parikshit Maharaj is speaking Brihad Bhagavatam to mother. So he must have heard Brihad Bhagavatam in...
He's not reading Brihad Bhagavatam. He's narrating the nutshell of all the Srimad Bhagavatam, which then becomes Brihad Bhagavatam.
Okay, but still this is totally different from Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what I was
trying
to...
that's the point I was making, is that one thing to consider, definitely Sukadeva Goswami only spoke, well, he spoke to Maharaj Parikshit because Maharaj Parikshit just had 7 days to live. So for sure, Parikshit hasn't got time to recite the whole Bhagavatam to his mother. So the whole Bhagavatam points at devotion towards the Supreme Lord. So he's given an example of those devotees who exemplify loving devotion to the Lord. So that's what he chose. That's what the essence he chose to relate to his mother.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, you get the essence, which is devotion. And what better way to detail devotion than by giving examples of different devotees? Yeah. Does that help?
That makes, yes, that has taken away my confusion. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, if there's not anything else, you can continue, Mother.
Text 55. There in Kimpurush Varsha, Narad saw Hanuman absorbed in worshipping Lord Ramchandra's lotus feet with varied items from the forest, as if serving the Lord personally as before.
Right, so this is part of his deity worship. He's collecting fruits and etc. from the forest. Looks like we're going to hear about it a bit more. So yeah, carry on, Mother.
Commentary. Hanuman's mode of worship was so personal, he could hardly remember he was standing in front of his Lord's installed deity. He felt as if living with the Lord in the forest, just as before. Text 56. Listening to the nectarian Ramayana recited by Gandharvas and other celestial singers, Hanuman was in ecstasy. His limbs trembled, tears poured from his eyes, and hair on his body stood on end. Commentary. These bodily symptoms of ecstasy are natural effect of maturely hearing the Lord's glories in the perfect consciousness of prema. The Gandharvas living in Kimpurush Lok regularly sang from the Sri Ramayana the glories of Lord Ramchandra, which Hanuman and his Rasik associates experienced as Rasayan, the storehouse, Rasayan, a storehouse full of the blissful taste of the 9 kinds of loving relationships with the Supreme Lord, or taking another sense of rasayan, these recitations were like a sweet tasting medicine, most effective for curing the disease of material existence and strengthening the natural life functions of the prema bhakti. Text 57. He glorified the Lord with various prayers in prose and verse, most excellent compositions of his own. He also recited prayers composed by others, and he repeatedly offered prostrate obeisances. Commentary. Some of Hanuman's prayers were his own compositions, and others he borrowed from the Puran and other scriptures. Text 58. Narad cried out in joy, "Glories to you, Sri Raghunath, to the beloved of Sri Janaki, all glories, glories to the elder brother of Sri Lakshmana." Commentary. Approaching his destination and seeing the ecstasy of Hanuman, Narad spontaneously expressed his own ecstasy in this way. Text 59. Delighted to hear the glorified the names of the Lord he worshipped, Hanuman jumped from where he stood and caught hold of Narad by the neck. Text 60. Standing in the sky, Narad was overjoyed. With his feet, he danced, and with his hands, he wiped away the floods of loving tears from the eyes of the Lord of the monkeys. Sharing Hanuman's unique mood of loving ecstasy, Narad spoke in a loud voice. Commentary. Narad could use only his feet for dancing because Hanuman held him by neck and because Narad's hands were busy wiping away Hanuman's tears. Text 61. Sri Narad said, "O Blessed One, truly you are the dearest devotee of the Supreme Lord. Today, just by seeing you, I too have become dear to the Lord." Commentary. Sri is the goddess of fortune, Lord Vishnu's consort. Her blessings have descended on Hanuman in the form of a treasure of pure devotional service. The devotee who has gained the favor of the goddess Sri is sure to please the personality of Godhead. And anyone who obtains the grace of such a Sriman devotee will also reach the same perfection. Text 62. Sri Parikshit said, "In the blink of an eye, Hanuman became sober and bowed down to show respect to the sage among the demigods. Hanuman greeted him with reverence and brought him to the temple of Lord Ramchandra, the hero of the Raghus, so that Narad could offer obeisances."
Okay, thank you, Mother. Thank you for reading. So perhaps Mother Kunamai, you can continue now. So interesting pastime where Hanuman is holding Narad by the neck. I don't know exactly what that looks like, where he's got him like this or he's got him like this, but he's holding his neck, and Narada Muni is in the sky. He's holding him. Anyway, so Narada Muni is in great ecstasy. So I think Hanuman's trying to pacify him, I think, perhaps. Try and keep him still. Anyway. All right, you can continue reading Mother Kunamai. 63.
63. Narad paid respects to the Lord in Hanuman's temple, and Hanuman carefully arranged for Narad to be seated. Narad felt he had now obtained an amazing treasure born from pure love for the Lord. He picked up his veena and spoke. Commentary. After offering prostrate obeisances to the deity of Lord Ramachandra, Narad felt multiple ecstasies, which involuntarily appeared in his body as trembling, perspiration, horripilation, and choking of his voice. In such a condition, he started to play his veena, but could not produce even a note. Instead, he began leaning on the veena, fearing he would fall to the ground.
So this is Asta Sattva Bhava. We read about this in the Nectar of Devotion. That's when the ecstasy comes in touch with different elements of the quote-unquote material, quote spiritual body, and it has different effects. For instance, I can't remember them all, but one when it touches when the life airs, or when the life airs are affected, then it causes tears, if I've got that right. Or horripilation is the hairs of the body standing on end. Anyway, so these are different symptoms of perfection experienced by a devotee when they hear about the Lord. And just this morning, I don't know if anyone heard the class this morning here in London, but it's glorifying Narada Muni, and who plays the veena, which is empowered. Yeah, it's empowered by the Lord, and he's always chanting the glories of the Lord. And he plays the veena, as we know. There's that picture of Narada Muni traveling around the universes with his veena. And this is when he received a spiritual body that could travel without restriction. And he constantly is singing the glories of the Lord. But here, he's unable because he's in too much ecstasy. So he can't play the veena, but he's leaning on the veena. Yeah. Just trying, he's using it to hold him up. He's concerned he might fall to the ground. So this is Narada Muni's ecstasy. Yeah. All right. You can continue on.
Text 64. Shri Narad said, yes, you are the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. No one can compare to you. You're always immersed in an ocean of ecstatic worship of the Lord, enjoying it as newer and newer at every moment. Commentary. Prema Bhakti Ras is called Amrit because it destroys the disease of material existence and is unimaginably sweet. Hanuman always swims in an ocean of such nectar. Text 65. You are the Lord's servant, his friend, his carrier, his seat, his flag, his umbrella, his canopy, his fan. You are his bard, his advisor, his doctor, his general, his best helper, the expander of his infinite glories. Commentary.
Hanuman ki jai. This is Hanuman's services. Yeah. Carry on.
Here Narad summarizes Prahlad's description of Hanuman's glories. Hanuman serves Lord Ramachandra in various ways. As a Lord's friend, he enjoys the Lord's confidence and affection. Unless Hanuman had his special relationship with Lord Rama, the Lord would never have dispatched him to Lanka to deliver his message and his ring to Sita. Just like a battle flag, Hanuman always stood by the Lord's side. He was so tall that everyone could see him, even from a great distance. Seeing Hanuman first from afar, one could know that Lord Ramachandra was present. And when Hanuman served as the Lord's vehicle, his mighty tail waved behind like a flag. The same tail also served as a royal umbrella, a sunscreen, canopy, and a fan. In the role of the Lord's bard, Hanuman sang the Lord's glories for his pleasure. Sometimes Hanuman carried out his medical services also, treating the Lord's battlefield wounds. Thus, Hanuman was the most adept of all Lord Rama's monkey assistants. Text 66. Having surrendered yourself entirely to the Lord, having received his highest mercy, having dedicated your life to the topics of his transcendental glories, you always is shouted by him. You are the best of saints, greater even than others like Garuda. Commentary. Hanuman employed all his senses and abilities in Lord Ramachandra's service. Nothing was dear to him but that service. He had no attachment to his body or anything related to his body, but the pure glories of his Lord Ram he cherished more than even life itself. Had he been deprived of hearing and chanting those glories while separated from his Lord, he would have died an instant death. Indeed, it is well known that that wherever Ramakatha is recited, Hanuman comes to listen. He makes every endeavor to increase the bliss of Lord Ramachandra's devotees, both in ancient times and today. Among the Supreme Lord's personal assistants, Hanuman is the most glorious, even greater than Garud. The exalted Vaishnav Yamunacharya Alabandaru says, "You, Hanuman, are the Lord's servant, friend, carrier, seat, flag, canopy, and fan. You embody the three Vedas. Even in the presence of Garud, you are graced with the honor of massaging the Lord's feet." Sosu Ratna 41.
Yes, there's something to remember here, that whenever there's Ram Katha, Hanuman is there, listening. I don't know if anyone saw, there was a video I saw some time ago, and it was a recitation of, somewhere in India, there was a recitation of Ramayana, and it showed it over 5 days. And each day, this big monkey came to actually listen. It's quite obvious that the monkey, he wasn't making mischief, and he was coming, he was sitting, listening to the recital. So we might guess that could well be Hanuman. Yeah, he's coming. But Hanuman has mystic power, so he can transform his self. So if we're listening, when it comes to the appearance of Lord Ram, and the devotees are chanting the glories of Lord Ramachandra, then look out for Hanuman. Of course, at the manor, Hanuman's already there. Anyway, somebody keep in mind Hanuman. Where else is Hanuman present? He is present in Bhagavad Gita. Can anyone tell us how he's present in Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, it's on the flag.
Yeah, that's it. He's the war cry. As Arjuna is, as Krishna is driving Arjuna's chariot into the Kauravas' phalanxes, then Hanuman is roaring on the flag, and he actually is depicted on the flag. The flag of Arjuna is represented by Hanuman. Like each of the warriors, they have a particular flag where they can be recognized. Yeah, so Hanuman, so on the chariot of Arjuna is Hanuman, and he's not just flapping, it's not just a flag flapping, he's actually roaring. You know, so he's present there. Hanuman ki jai. All right, so we read on. Any other reflections, please? You can let us, any reflections, can share our questions, please let us know. Otherwise, we continue with text 67.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Because if we go to Chitrakoot, when we went to Chitrakoot, where Lord Ramchandra, Sita, they stayed for a while after leaving Ayodhya. And in Chitrakoot, a Brahman showed us a temple. He said, that is a temple where Hanuman lives eternally. He said, when Lord Ramchandra left, Hanuman was told to stay behind, and he normally stays here. And it was all a proper Hanuman temple.
Yeah, I should imagine like some devotees, they, like Krishna, can expand himself. So some devotees also, they can expand themselves. So here we're hearing that Hanuman is present in Kim Purusha, and he's worshipping the deity of the Lord. So that isn't on, as far as I understand, Kim Purusha isn't this earthly planet. It's another planetary system, higher planetary systems, you know. But here we're hearing about he's present in the temple. And no doubt he is. He's present. He eternally resides there, especially in Chitrakoot, where Lord Ram stayed while he was exiled. So yeah, I mean, I haven't been there, so you know, you're very fortunate to have gone there, Chitrakoot. Sorry?
Yeah, no, I'm just getting excited because we're going this Kartik. We'll be going there.
So you're going there. So
yeah,
perhaps when you're there, you can sit down and read this part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita and glorify Hanuman.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Prabhu, I will do that.
Glorify Hanuman. And nice that Hanuman is also, he also recites prayers and stotras, but he also writes his own stotras and prayers, glorifying the Lord as well. So that's something to note as well. You can continue.
Check 67. Indeed, your devotion for the Lord is absolutely pure, for you consider nothing more valuable than the pleasure of serving him. You delighted all his devotees by speaking to the best, to that best of generous lords, these words. Commentary. Sri Ramachandra is the most charitable Lord, ready to sacrifice everything for his devotees. The following verse, spoken by Hanuman, delights the Lord's devotees because it expresses the exclusive wish for the Lord's service and contempt for impersonal liberation. Text 68. Even though liberation destroys the bondage of material existence, I have no desire for liberation in which I would forget that you are the master and I am your servant. Commentary. The source of this famous verse is unknown. In Sri Bhagavad Rasamrita Sindhu 1249, Srila Rupa Goswami cites it merely as Prashidam Sri Hanumad Vakyam, a well-known statement by Hanuman. Text 69. Sri Parikshit said, Hanuman was now burning in a fire of separation from his master, the Supreme Lord, and the fuel of hearing about the special mercy of the Lord's lotus feet had brought that fire to a blaze. For a while he cried sorrowfully, and then, calmed by a sage, he spoke. Commentary. As dry firewood kindles quickly, Hanuman's ecstatic pangs of separation at once increased when he heard the Lord's special glories, especially the account of how the Lord had mercifully engaged him in personal service. Narada was able to console him with soothing words, and after crying for some time, Hanuman regained composure. Text 70. But Sri Hanuman said, "O best of sages, why are you doing this to such a wretch, devoid of lotus feet of Shriman Ramachandra? Why do you make me cry by reminding me of how the Lord has neglected me?" Commentary.
Right, I think we know what's going to start now. Exactly the same what Prahlad did. Now Hanuman's going to be.
He's going to refute everything. He's going to refute all these kindness.
Yeah. Now he's going to in his humility, he's going to point out how he has no devotion, etc. So let's see how he does this. Continue.
Commentary. Because Lord Ramachandra appears like a human being with 2 hands, 2 legs, we would expect his lotus feet to be described by a dual form, padam bhujyam, instead of by the plural, padam bhujya. In Sanskrit, plural forms are normally used to indicate more than 2, but Hanuman here employs poetic license by using the plural form out of extreme reverence for his Lord. The word hinam means not only devoid, but intentionally rejected. In the complex transformations of ecstasy, Hanuman lovingly reproaches Lord Ramachandra for being cruel. Technically, naisthuriyam means hardness of the heart. Text 71. If I'm really the Lord's servant, then why did he forcibly abandon me when he took with him to his spiritual kingdom his dear devotees, including Sugriva and all the residents of Koshola? Text 72. You are very kind to me because I've had the good fortune to engage in the service. You conclude that the Lord has given me his favor.
There's
Text
lots going
70.
on there, my God. There's lots of phones going off there. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, text 73 to 74. But now he has descended to Mathurapuri, where he displays the summit of his opulences and powers. All the mercy he has shown me cannot equal even a speck of the mercy he has shown the saintly Pandavas, any more than a molecule of earth can equal Mount Sumeru. Commentary. Out of respect for the great sage, Hanuman finally acknowledges that what Narada said about Lord Ramachandra's favoring him cannot all be false. Lord Rama's order that Hanuman stay in this world in separation from him seemed cruel, but at least before that order, the Lord had allowed Hanuman to serve him in various ways. It is only because of soft-heartedness, Hanuman says, that Narad considers him a favored devotee of Lord Hanuman, thinks that if Narad's judgment were less emotional, Narad would have concluded differently. Like every other Vaishnav whom Narad has approached, Hanuman wants to divert the sage's glorification to someone else. As the object of his diversion, he chooses the Pandavas. Hanuman compares the Lord's mercy on them to the huge golden mountain Sumeru, and Lord's mercy on him to a speck of dust. Text 70.
If we hear about this, it is what's the word, interesting to use how dear that Hanuman is to Lord Ramachandra. Yet he asked him dramatically, asked him to stay here in Burma, it seems, on the earth. While every other, as far as I know, all the other monkey soldiers, etc., everyone went back to the spiritual Ayodhya in the spiritual world and left Hanuman here. Why did he do that? Can anyone, perhaps, if that's the question, how could we answer it? Why did he do that? Why didn't he take Hanuman with him?
I think for the same reason how Lord Krishna told Arjun that you speak because they will believe you rather than coming from me. So I would put it on a similar platform with this, that people would tend to honor Ramachandra through his devotion. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Oh, you mean to say that Hanuman will make known and glorify Ram?
Yes.
With his great devotion and attachment, yeah. And that's exactly what.
Just like Uddhav as well, isn't it? Uddhav.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up as a question. Yeah, Uddhava also.
Yeah.
He was, you could say, left behind and stranded.
Yeah.
But Uddhava had, again, yeah, it's a good point, because Uddhava had a mission. Perhaps we will look at the example of Uddhava, we can perhaps clearly understand that Hanuman was acting the same way. Uddhava, he had to go to broadcast the glories of bhakti to all the different sages.
Yeah.
So some devotees play that role. They stay in the material world. I think Arjuna, he doesn't exactly return to the spiritual world.
No, he doesn't.
But he always accompanies Krishna in Burma. Whenever Krishna appears on the particular universe, on the earthly realms, then Arjuna is always with him. So in one sense, you could say he is in the spiritual world. It can't be that bad if you're with Krishna. So not doing bad. But still, this is the selfless nature of devotees. He was a great devotee. And we can we can't imagine, but can we try to imagine the feelings of Vripalamba, of separation that Hanuman is feeling from Lord Ram? And actually, it said there, wasn't it? If his glory, if the Ram Katar stops, then Hanuman will die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what's keeping him alive. That was described as Amrita. That's his elixir. That's what's keeping his life in his body.
Yeah.
He's hearing about Lord Ramachandra. You know, so now Hanuman is very tactfully diverting the attention from himself towards the Pandavas.
Yeah.
So this might be now his next destination, but let's see. Yeah. Suniti Priya, you like to read next?
Is it by
Your hands up.
sending where we are? Am I right?
75, I think.
Yeah.
By sending poison and many other calamities, one after other, to trouble the Pandavas from their childhood, the Lord deliberately showered their determination, religion, fame, wisdom, devotional, and ecstatic love. As the invisible supersoul, Lord Krishna arranged for the Pandavas to undergo many troubles. He did this, however, only to broadcast their glories forever throughout the world. The Lord's pure devotees never perish, and what seems to be their suffering in this world is only for their benefit and glorification. He
All
acted
right. Something to keep in mind there.
yes. You want to
Yeah, if we're going through a difficult situation, perhaps the Lord is doing that to exemplify your glorious attachment to the process of bhakti, despite all the impediments that come our way or come your way. We still continue to serve Krishna. You know, sometimes the devotion of the devotees often baffles relatives who are not devotees. When sometimes devotees, they go through difficulties, and the relatives who are not devotees, sometimes, not all the times, seem to go through externally less difficulties than than the actual devotees.
It's true.
Sometimes,
It's true.
yeah, something's like so. But what really baffles people is the devotees' continued faith in Krishna, and that really impresses people. They may not admit it, but it definitely gets them thinking and contemplating that there must there's something extraordinary going on. Actually worshiping Krishna, and everything seems to be, you know, so many impediments or so many things are coming, but they still continue with their faith in Krishna.
Yeah,
So,
determination.
yeah. So yeah, the Pandavas had got many troubles, but that was to broadcast their glories. Yeah. Right, no, continue, Mama. Sorry, cut you off there. You just started reading. Yeah.
Acted as their servant, advisor, messenger, charioteer, and the court attendant. He kept watch for them at night, followed them to procession, and even offered them praise and obeisance. Not only did Lord Krishna look after the Pandavas as the invisible supersoul, but he also dealt with them in various public exchanges of love. Sometimes he drove Arjun's chariot. In Yudhishthira court, he sat as the head of assembly of advisor. Like an intimate servant, he anticipated the Pandavas' wishes, and as the Rajasurya sacrifice, he humbly washed the feet of every guest. He gave personal counsel to Yudhishthira and carried message for him. On occasion, he would stand guard all night with sword in hand, and he would follow the Yudhishthira in procession and offered words of praise like an ordinary subordinate. All Vaishnavas take delight in hearing their glories of Pandavas, but one who has a special relationship with Pandavas, like their grandson Parikshit, spontaneously feels special ecstasy from such hearing as Shri Sutta Goswami described in his first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:16:16. Yeah, it's what I really liked about is the one when Lord Krishna was washing all the feet of the guests. You know how humility he did all that service for the Pandavas, how he adored them so much.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of the Rajasuya sacrifice. Yeah, Krishna volunteered to do that, to actually offer reception. It wasn't just washing the feet, it would be like the full reception, a full official reception that was offered to all the exalted guests. And Krishna was in charge of organizing that all the guests were taken care of. You know, he was in charge of that. And part of, and as you correctly said, Suniti Priya, he particularly washed the feet of all the guests. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that really touched me whenever I read about Bhagavatam. That is so wonderful. Maharaj Parikshit heard that Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obey out of his causeless mercy, rendering all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandava, the Lord accepted post, ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend and night watchman, according to the will of Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisance like one younger in year. When Maharaj Parikshit heard this, he became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. The verse spoken here by Hanuman does not explicitly mention the friendship between Krishna and the Pandavas, because all their exchanges will affect of the underlying relations.
Just one point here is that what is being explained by Hanuman is actually a very good point, because Hanuman served Lord Ram exclusively and in a wonderful way. But Lord Ram very much played the role of being the person served, because he's Lord Ramachandra, he's the king. But Krishna and the Pandavas is very much different. He was acting as, in many ways, as their servant. Even interesting, we read that he would stand guard all night, guarding the Pandavas. Yeah, I don't know where that would be. Perhaps that was at the back of Kurukshetra. I don't know. So you can see the difference here. It's a good point that Hanuman's bringing up. Yeah, and so the Lord was subordinate. As we know, he was Arjuna's charioteer, and he was a messenger, and he would play a subordinate role to the Pandavas. So interesting.
But I think I personally love the relationship with Krishna like that, the Ramchandra. That's my, because you can still have that exchange with the Lord, But obviously I understand Ramchandra, his role he was playing differently.
Sorry, the first part I missed, Mother Suniti Priya. Just say again.
I said I like the way he had an exchange with his devotees, Krishna, with the Pandavas, the way he was, it's wonderful. And I'm so glad that I am into Krishna consciousness, that sort of relationship with the Lordship. But with Ramchandra, obviously, he had to play his role a different way than what Krishna had,
Plays so you could say the role of Krishna, which seems like is a little bit, or quite a lot of it, a little bit more intimate.
Exactly, yeah.
A little bit intimate. As we know, Arjuna, after Krishna revealed the universal form, then Arjuna reflected back on how he had a very sakya relationship with Krishna, sometimes even teasing him for coming from the so-called lesser dynasty and joking with him. So Arjuna was reflecting on that and becoming fearful of the consequences, So it's very, very sweet. One time, as I mentioned last week, I think, Lord Ram would go to embrace Hanuman, but Hanuman would shrink away from that embrace. He'd always been in a mood of being a servant and not on an equal basis at all. But Krishna, he put himself as a subordinate to the Pandavas. Yeah. So, nice. Continue reading, Robert.
Out of his affectionate concern from them, what would the Lord not do? He was seen taking the combined role of their servant, companion, and dearmost friend, and they took the same roles of him. For the Pandavas, Krishna tolerant Bhishm's attacking and wounding him. For the Pandavas, Krishna broke his promise not to fight at Kurukshetra. In fact, for the Pandavas, Krishna would do anything, but to skip might ask, although God is kind to all his creatures and certainly can be friendly to his devotees, why should he demand himself by trusting ordinary mortal and acting as their servant? Here, Hanuman resolves such doubts. Krishna's various service for the Pandavas were not superficial shown, but expression on his true feelings. He was not at one moment posing as a friend, but being unwilling to serve. At another moment, appealing, willing to serve, but not showing friendship. At another moment, making show of friendship, but without genuine concern. And at another, showing loving concern, but not actually being a friend. Such inconsiderable reciprocation are seen in material life. Where there is no true love, Krishna's dealing with Pandavas. However, we always free from duplicity, and the feeling were mutual, and Pandavas were ready to sacrifice anything for the happiness of Krishna.
Very sweet relationships there, not any tinge of selfish motive in the exchanges between the Pandavas and Krishna. It was all based on pure love. Yes, so there was no contradictions. You know, that's what's been brought up here. And on the material platform, often there may be contradictions. Sometimes someone maybe have a very kind of respectful relationship to one, but then something may change down the road where one becomes less respectful or becomes otherwise focused. Yeah, so often, and that's what can confuse many in the relationships in this world. Persons who you seem to have a relationship with in one way or another, due to circumstances, due to the modes of material nature, it often changes. And most it can change for the worst. So it's not very consistent. But throughout the relationship to Krishna and Pandavas, no, every dealing is expression of selfless loving devotion. And not just selfless loving devotion of the Pandavas towards Krishna, but Krishna's selfless loving devotion towards the Pandavas. So very, very wonderful. And it says, Hanuman, it seems like he's not spending much time dismantling all the glorification that came his way as Prahlad did. He's just directed it, gone straight to the glories of the Pandavas. He's changed the subject completely. Whereas Prahlad was bringing up all the details of the glorification and refuting it word for word. But here, see, like Hanuman is being kind of a little bit tactful. He's just put himself out the picture completely. And at least at this point, now he might speak more about himself, but at this point now he's just glorifying the Pandavas. Should we read a bit more? 5 more minutes left.
Yeah, is it because the Lord, that's where I'm sorry, I was just listening to you and got carried away. Okay.
78.
78.
Lord,
Because the
yeah.
Lord resides constantly with the Pandavas, their capital city has become like sacred forest where great sages performed austerity, and residing the city awards won the same pious benefits as performing austerity acts as penances. Many renowned sages visited Pandava's capital Hastinapur to see Sri Krishna because they knew very well that seeing him is a perfection of all austerities. As Narada told Yudhishthira, all the Pandavas, all of you Pandavas are extremely fortunate, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, lives in your palace just like a human being. Great saintly person know this very well, and therefore they constantly visit the house. Bhagavatam 7.10.48. For devotees of Krishna, tapas refers not too much to troublesome austerity of the body as to one point concentration of the mind, and for his pure devotees fixing the mind on Krishna is not an austerity at all, but is the highest pleasure. For the Vaishnavas in Hastinapur is invaluable fruit of tapasya, sat tapa palham, was to be able to see his constantly, sometimes physically, but always in their heart.
I'm just remembering here the prayers of Queen Kunti, and we're all familiar with that specific prayer. Padi, I forget the Sanskrit now, but she prays for distressful situations to come, because that was her experience, that all the different tribulations that her and the Pandavas went through, Krishna would always appear on the scene, and his wonderful, sweet, his wonderful, sweet smile, his form, his lotus eyes, and his speech, it would melt the heart of Kunti, and she'd be overwhelmed in ecstasy that the so-called stresses they went through, she would forget. They would be insignificant. So Queen Kunti would pray like that. She would pray that those distresses come. I forget the whole verse, but something like that. So it just reminded me there, reading this Queen Kunti.
It is Vipadasantu Taha Shaswat Tatra Tatra Jagadguru. That's the one.
Bhavato Dasanam Dashat Apurna Bhava Darshanam. Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Apurna Bhava Darshanam. Your darshan comes again and again. By having your darshan, then we will overcome the darshan of birth and death.
Yeah. And we remember it all the time. That's what she was saying.
Yeah. All right, it's just hit 7 o'clock. So let's first, we can pause here on text 79. Let me put a bookmark up there, and we'll continue hearing the wonderful glories of the Pandavas. So we might guess that that will be the next visit for Narada Muni. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us this week.
Thank you.
And look forward to next week's Krishna Katha. Hare Krishna. May you have a wonderful
Muli
weekend.
Prabhu, His Grace Muli Prabhu ki.
Jai.
The Vaishnavis ki.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.